The massive Earth-ship Harmony drifted through the void toward the distant blue star. Inside the command bridge, Captain Dong Min watched the alien planet grow larger on the main screen. He had commanded ships for 20 years, but never one carrying such important cargo. This was not weapons or supplies. This was hope itself. "Captain, we are receiving their docking signals now," said Communications Officer Park. The sounds coming through the speakers were unlike anything human ears had heard before. Strange musical tones mixed with what sounded like whispers from another world. Captain Dongmin nodded and turned to look at the young woman sitting at the translation console. Jiwoo was only 24 years old, but she had learned more alien languages than anyone else on Earth. Her fingers moved across the control panel with practiced ease. The universal translation matrix hummed softly around her head like a crown of light. "Can you understand them?" Jiwoo asked the captain. Jiwoo closed her eyes and listened to the alien sounds. After a few moments, she opened them and smiled. "Yes, Captain. They are welcoming us to their home. They say they are honored to meet the humans who travel so far for peace." Dr. Su Jin checked the readings on her tablet. The translation matrix was working perfectly. 3 years of development had led to this moment. The device could take any language and convert it directly into the user's brain. But it needed someone special to operate it, someone with natural language skills and a pure heart. That was why they had chosen Jiwoo. The young woman had grown up speaking Korean at home and English at school, but her gift went far beyond normal language learning. She could hear the emotion behind words. She could understand what people really meant, even when they said something else. Most importantly, she always tried to find the good in others. "Beginning docking procedures," announced the pilot. Through the viewports, they could see the Veltron space station. It looked like a crystal flower floating in space. Thousands of lights sparkled along its surface, creating patterns that seemed to dance and flow like water. Taehyun stood behind his sister's chair. As security chief, he was responsible for protecting the human delegation. But Jiwoo was more than just another diplomat to him. She was his little sister, and he had promised their parents he would keep her safe. "The station is beautiful," Jiwoo whispered as she watched the lights. "I can almost hear music in those patterns." Dr. Su-jin looked up from her instruments. "The translation matrix is picking up some kind of harmonic frequency from their station. It seems to respond to your emotional state, Jiwoo." Ambassador Hyo-rim joined them at the viewing port. She was Earth's most experienced diplomat, but even she felt nervous about this meeting. The Velthron Empire controlled 12 star systems. They had technology that was thousands of years ahead of humanity. If this mission failed, Earth would remain alone in a galaxy full of dangers. "Remember, everyone," said Ambassador Hyo-rim, "the Velthrons value honesty above all else. They can somehow sense when someone is lying or has bad intentions. That is why we need Jiwoo to handle all communication. Her natural goodness will help them trust us." The docking was smooth and quiet. As the airlock opened, the humans got their first look at a Velthron. The alien was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to glow with inner light. Its eyes were large and dark like pools of starlight. When it spoke, the words sounded like singing. Jiwoo stepped forward, wearing the translation matrix headset. The device glowed brighter as it detected the alien language. She listened carefully, then spoke in clear English. "The Velthron says his name is Keeper Veltar. He welcomes us to Station Crystal Song. He says they have prepared a great ceremony to honor our arrival." Keeper Veltar looked directly at Jiwoo and spoke again. This time his voice seemed filled with wonder. "He says he can sense the purity of my thoughts," Jiwoo translated. "He is amazed that humans have sent someone so young and innocent as their voice. He says this shows that humanity values truth over trickery." As they walked through the station corridors, Jiwoo marveled at everything around her. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. Plants grew everywhere, but they were unlike any Earth vegetation. These plants seemed to respond to the emotions of people nearby. When Ji-woo smiled at a flowering vine, it bloomed brighter. "The translation matrix is working better than we ever hoped," Dr. Soo-jin whispered to Captain Dong-min. "It is not just translating words, it is helping Ji-woo understand their entire culture." They entered a vast chamber filled with hundreds of Velthrons. All of them looked at Ji-woo with the same expression of amazement. Their leader stepped forward. He was ancient even by Velthron standards, with skin that glowed like moonlight. "I am High Arbiter Vexthal," the old alien said through Ji-woo's translation. "In all my centuries, I have never met a being with such clear intentions. Your species has sent us a true gift, a speaker who cannot lie because she does not know how to hide the truth." Ambassador Hyo-rim felt relief wash over her. The mission was starting well. The Velthrons seemed genuinely impressed with humanity's choice of translator, but Dr. Soo-jin noticed something strange on her readings. The translation matrix was absorbing far more data than it should. The device was designed to translate language, but it seemed to be downloading much more than words. It was absorbing concepts and cultural knowledge at an incredible rate. She decided not to mention it yet. Everything was going so well. What could go wrong? The crystal spires of diplomacy rose like frozen lightning against the purple sky of the Velthron homeworld. Ji-woo stood at the viewing balcony of their guest quarters, watching the alien city come to life as their twin suns began to rise. The buildings seemed to sing in harmonious tones as the light touched them. "Have you been awake all night?" asked Tae-hyun as he joined his sister on the balcony. He carried 2 cups of the warm drink the Velthrons had provided. It tasted like honey mixed with starlight. "I could not sleep," Ji-woo replied, taking the cup gratefully. "Every time I close my eyes, I hear their language flowing through my mind. The translation matrix is still active even when I'm not wearing it. I can understand conversations happening 3 floors below us." Tae-hyun frowned with concern. "Is that normal? Dr. Soo-jin should check the device?" "No, it feels wonderful," Ji-woo said with a smile. "I am learning so much about their culture. Did you know that Velthrons cannot tell lies to each other? Their language makes deception impossible. When they speak, each word carries the emotional truth behind it." Ambassador Hyo-rim appeared in the doorway looking nervous. "Ji-woo we need. To prepare for the first formal ceremony, High Arbiter Vexthal wants to begin the cultural exchange rituals before we discuss trade agreements." Dr. Soo-jin arrived carrying her monitoring equipment. "How are you feeling, Ji-woo? The readings from yesterday showed some unusual brain activity while you were translating." "I feel amazing," Ji-woo answered honestly. "Everything makes sense now. Their language is not just words, it is pure meaning. When they speak, I can feel their intentions, their hopes, their fears. It is like reading their hearts." Dr. Soo-jin attached sensors to Ji-woo's temples and checked her tablet. The readings were indeed unusual, but not dangerous. If anything, Ji-woo's brain seemed to be developing new neural pathways that enhanced her natural empathy. "The matrix is adapting to your unique abilities," Dr. Soo-jin explained. "It was designed to translate language, but with you it seems to be translating entire cultural concepts." They made their way to the main ceremony hall through corridors that sparkled with embedded crystals. Other members of the human delegation walked quietly behind them. Everyone understood that the success of Earth's first interstellar alliance depended on Ji-woo's ability to bridge the gap between 2 completely different species. Captain Dong-min reviewed his notes as they walked. "Remember, the Velthrons have specific protocols for these ceremonies. Every gesture has meaning. Every word must be perfectly translated or we could accidentally insult them." The ceremony hall was breathtaking. The ceiling stretched up so high, it seemed to touch the sky itself. Hundreds of Velthrons sat in curved rows that formed perfect acoustic circles. At the center stood High Arbiter Vexthal, waiting with patient dignity. Ji-woo put on the translation matrix headset and immediately felt the familiar warm glow as it activated. But this time something was different. The device seemed to merge more completely with her thoughts. She could not tell where her natural abilities ended and the machine began. High Arbiter Vex Thal began to speak, and his words filled the hall like music. Ji-woo listened with her whole being, then turned to translate for the human delegation. He says that in all the ages of Velthron history, they have never encountered a species that sent a truth speaker of such purity. He can sense that my intentions are completely honest. He says this proves that humanity is worthy of the great trust. Ambassador Hyorim looked puzzled. What is the great trust? Ji-woo asked the question in the Velthron language and received an answer that made her gasp. It is their most sacred concept. They will only share their deepest knowledge and friendship with species that prove they value truth above personal gain. He says very few races have ever passed this test. The ceremony continued for hours. The Velthrons shared stories of their history, their philosophy, and their understanding of the universe. Through Ji-woo's translation, the humans learned that the galaxy was far more complex and dangerous than they had imagined. They speak of other empires that have fallen to darkness. Ji-woo translated as tears formed in her eyes. Species that chose power over wisdom and destroyed themselves. They say the galaxy is full of ruins left by civilizations that could not balance strength with compassion. High Arbiter Vex Thal spoke directly to Ji-woo in a voice filled with ancient sadness. He is telling me about the Void-bringers, Ji-woo whispered to the human delegation. An empire of machines that consumes entire worlds. They have been moving toward this part of the galaxy for 1,000 years. The Velthrons have been preparing defenses, but they need allies. The old Velthron continued speaking, and Ji-woo's expression grew more serious with each word. He says that most species they contact are too focused on immediate trade benefits to understand the real danger. But he can sense that humans have the potential to be different. We have the capacity for both. Innocence and wisdom. Both compassion and strength. Dr. Sujin noticed that the translation matrix readings were spiking higher than ever before. The device was processing incredible amounts of information, but Ji-woo seemed to handle it effortlessly. Her natural empathy was allowing her to absorb, not just words, but entire cultural concepts. As the ceremony reached its climax, High Arbiter Vex Thal made an announcement that stunned even the other Velthrons. He says they are going to grant us the highest honor possible, Ji-woo translated with wonder in her voice. Tomorrow, they will share the sacred archives with humanity, knowledge that they have never given to any other species, military strategies, cultural secrets, the locations of ancient technologies. Ambassador Hyorim felt her heart race. This was beyond their wildest hopes for the mission. But why? Asked Captain Dongmin. What have we done to earn such trust? Ji-woo asked the question, and received an answer that made her smile with pure joy. He says it is because of the innocence of my heart. They can sense that I truly want to help others, not just benefit humanity. He says that kind of purity is so rare in the galaxy that when they find it, they must nurture and protect it. The ceremony ended with a harmony sung by all the Velthrons together. The sound was so beautiful that several humans began to cry. Ji-woo felt the translation matrix glowing brighter than ever as it absorbed the emotional meaning behind the alien. Music. As they left the hall, Dr. Sujin pulled Ambassador Hyorim aside. The device is acting beyond its design parameters, she whispered urgently. It is downloading massive amounts of cultural and historical data. I am not sure what effect this will have on Ji-woo, but looking at the young woman's face filled with wonder and joy. Ambassador Hyorim decided not to worry. Everything was going perfectly. Tomorrow they would receive the greatest gift any species had ever been offered. What could possibly go wrong? The Grand Assembly Hall was the most sacred place on the Velthron homeworld. Ancient crystals embedded in the walls had witnessed 1,000 years of important decisions. Today, they would witness either the birth of the greatest alliance in galactic history or its tragic destruction. Jiwoo sat in the center of the massive chamber wearing the translation matrix. The device glowed brighter than it ever had before, casting rainbow patterns across her face. Around her, in perfect circles, sat representatives from 12 star systems. All of them had come to witness humanity's acceptance into the Veltron Empire. "Are you ready, Jiwoo?" asked Ambassador Hyo Rim. The older woman's hands shook slightly with nervous excitement. Everything Earth had worked for during the past 50 years of space exploration led to this moment. "I am ready," Jiwoo replied with confidence. But something felt different about the translation matrix today. The usual warm glow seemed hotter, almost burning against her temples. She decided not to mention it. This ceremony was too important to delay over minor discomfort. Dr. Soo-jin checked her monitoring equipment one final time. The readings were higher than normal, but still within acceptable ranges. She had spent 3 sleepless nights making adjustments to the matrix after discovering irregularities in its data processing. Everything seemed stable now. High Arbiter Vexthal rose from his position at the front of the assembly. His ancient voice filled the chamber as he began the ritual words that had opened every sacred archive ceremony for 1,000 years. "Today we grant the humans access to knowledge that has never been shared with outsiders." Jiwoo translated his words for the human delegation. "They have proven through their truth speaker that they possess both the innocence to be trusted and the wisdom to use such knowledge responsibly." Captain Dong-min felt his chest swell with pride. Earth's small delegation was about to receive military and technological secrets that could advance human civilization by centuries. The ceremony continued with traditional songs and ritual exchanges of gifts. But as the morning progressed, Dr. Soo-jin noticed troubling changes in her readings. The translation matrix was drawing more power than ever before. Internal temperature readings showed dangerous heat buildup in several circuits. "Jiwoo," Dr. Soo-jin whispered during a quiet moment. "How do you feel? Is the device causing any pain?" "It feels warm, but not painful," Jiwoo replied without taking her eyes off High Arbiter Vexthal. "Actually, it feels more connected to my thoughts than ever before. I can understand concepts before they finish speaking them." Dr. Soo-jin frowned at her tablet. The neural interface readings showed activity in parts of Jiwoo's brain that should not be affected by the translation matrix. But there was no time to investigate further. The most important part of the ceremony was about to begin. High Arbiter Vexthal gestured for complete silence. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of ancient authority. "Now we share the sacred archives," Jiwoo translated. "The military knowledge that has kept our empire safe for 1,000 years. The locations of weapon caches hidden throughout the galaxy. The true history of the wars that shaped our civilization." As the Velthron leader continued speaking, Jiwoo felt information flowing into her mind like a river of light. But this was not just language translation. She was receiving detailed star charts showing hidden military bases, battle strategies that had defeated entire fleets, knowledge of weapons so powerful they could crack planets. Dr. Soo-jin's equipment began showing red warning signals. The translation matrix was overloading, but she could not interrupt the ceremony without causing a diplomatic disaster. She watched, helplessly, as the device pulled more and more power from its fuel cells. The Voidbringers approached from the galactic rim. High Arbiter Vexthal continued, and Jiwoo translated each terrible word. "Their machine fleets have already consumed 40 star systems. We estimate they will reach Velthron space within 50 standard years. Only united can we hope to survive." The information kept flowing. Jiwoo learned about previous civilizations that had faced the Voidbringers. Most had been completely destroyed. A few had survived by abandoning their homeworlds and fleeing deeper into the galaxy. But the Velthrans had chosen a different path. They had spent centuries preparing for war. "We have built weapons that can shatter stars." Jiwoo heard herself translating words that filled her with horror. "We have created viruses that can corrupt machine intelligence. We have learned to use the enemy's own technology against them." The I translation matrix grew hotter against Jiwoo's temples. Warning lights blinked frantically on Dr. Soo-jin's equipment, but the ceremony could not be stopped. Too much was at stake. High Arbiter Vex Thal began sharing the darkest secrets of Velthron, military strategy, how they had sacrificed entire colonies to learn enemy weaknesses, how they had experimented on captured Void-bringer machines to develop countermeasures, how they had made alliances with other species only to abandon them when it became convenient. Jiwoo felt her worldview cracking as each new piece of knowledge flowed into her mind. These were not the peaceful, wise aliens she had thought she was meeting. They were survivors who had done terrible things to ensure their civilization continued to exist. "We have learned that mercy is a luxury the galaxy cannot afford," the High Arbiter continued. "Compassion must be balanced with the willingness to do whatever survival requires. This is why we test potential allies so carefully. Only species capable of both innocence and ruthlessness can stand against what is coming." The translation matrix began smoking. Dr. Soo-jin realized with growing panic that the device was about to suffer complete system failure. But she could not shut it down without disrupting the neural interface. That could cause permanent brain damage to Jiwoo. "The humans have passed our first test by sending a truth speaker of pure heart," High Arbiter Vex Thal declared. "Now they must pass the second test. Can their innocent speaker bear the weight of necessary darkness? Can she understand that sometimes good people must do evil things to protect what they love?" Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the translation matrix. Critical system failure warnings flashed across Dr. Soo-jin's screens. The moral filtering protocols that were supposed to protect Jiwoo from traumatic information had completely reversed. Instead of shielding her from dark knowledge, the device was forcing her to absorb every terrible detail. "Dr. Soo-jin, what is happening?" Captain Dong-min demanded as he saw the scientist frantically working at her controls. "The Matrix is inverting its safety protocols," Dr. Soo-jin replied with panic in her voice. "Instead of filtering out harmful information, it is amplifying it. Jiwoo is receiving unprocessed data about warfare, torture, and genocide. This could destroy her mind." But it was too late to stop the process. Jiwoo sat motionless in her chair as centuries of Velthron military knowledge poured into her consciousness. Battle plans that sacrificed millions of lives, weapons designed to cause maximum suffering, strategic deceptions that had led allied species into deadly traps. The innocent young woman who had begun the ceremony was disappearing. In her place, something new was being born. Someone who understood the true cost of survival in a hostile galaxy. When the ceremony finally ended and the translation matrix shut down, Jiwoo remained sitting perfectly still. Her eyes were open, but they held a depth of knowledge that had not been there hours before. "Jiwoo," Tae-hyun called to his sister. "Are you all right?" She turned to look at him, and he stepped back in shock. The innocence that had always shone in her eyes was gone, replaced by the cold wisdom of someone who had seen too much. "I am fine, brother," Jiwoo said in a voice that sounded older than her years. "I understand everything now." Jiwoo sat alone in her quarters, staring at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. The translation matrix lay silent on the desk beside her, but the knowledge it had forced into her mind continued to burn like acid in her thoughts. She now knew things that no innocent person should ever have to understand. Dr. Soo-jin knocked softly on the door before entering with her medical scanner. "Jiwoo, I need to check your brain activity after what happened during the ceremony. The matrix malfunctioned in ways I have never seen before. It did not malfunction, Jiwoo said without looking up. Her voice carried a strange calmness that worried the older woman. It worked exactly as the Velthrons intended. They needed to be sure I could handle the truth about what we are facing. Dr. Sujin activated her scanner and gasped at the readings. Jiwoo's brain showed new neural pathways that had not existed the day before. Entire sections that controlled empathy and moral reasoning had been rewired. The young woman was still fundamentally herself, but she now possessed the mental framework of someone who had lived through centuries of war. "What truth, Jiwoo?" Dr. Sujin asked gently. "What did they show you?" Jiwoo finally looked up and Dr. Sujin stepped back from the cold intelligence in her eyes. "They showed me that the galaxy is not a place for innocent people. Every species that survives does so by making choices that would horrify those who have never faced real danger. The Velthrons have committed genocide to protect themselves. They have betrayed allies who trusted them. They have sacrificed entire worlds to gain tactical advantages." Taehyun entered the room carrying a tray of food. He had been worried about his sister since the ceremony ended 6 hours ago. She had not spoken to anyone or eaten anything. "You need to eat something," he said, setting the tray on her desk. But when Jiwoo looked at him, he saw something in her expression that made him freeze. "Did you know, brother, that there are weapons that can turn a star into a bomb?" Jiwoo asked in the same calm voice. "The Velthrons have 12 of them hidden in different star systems. They are prepared to destroy entire solar systems to stop the Voidbringers, even if those systems contain billions of innocent people." Taehyun sat down heavily in a chair. "Jiwoo, you are scaring me. What happened to you during that ceremony?" "I learned the price of survival," she replied. "And I learned that humanity is completely unprepared to pay it. We still think in terms of right and wrong. But the universe does not care about our moral categories. It only cares about who is strong enough to continue existing." Captain Dong-min arrived with Ambassador Hyo-rim, both looking concerned. They had been meeting with the human delegation trying to understand what had gone wrong during the ceremony. "Jiwoo, we need to discuss what you learned today," Ambassador Hyo-rim said carefully. "The Velthrons are asking if humanity is ready to join their military alliance. They want an answer before we leave their world." "I know exactly what they are asking," Jiwoo said, standing up for the first time since returning to her quarters. "They want to know if we are willing to become like them, if we can sacrifice our ideals to survive, if we can make the hard choices that keeping humanity alive will require." She walked to the window and looked out at the alien city below. The beautiful crystal spires no longer seemed so innocent to her. Now she could see them for what they really were. Monuments built on the graves of species that had trusted the Velthrons and been abandoned when it became convenient. "The Voidbringers are not just machines," Jiwoo continued. "They were once a biological species like us, but they chose to merge with technology to become more efficient, more logical. They removed emotions like compassion and mercy because those feelings made them weak. Now they convert entire civilizations into more machines because they believe that is the only way to bring order to the galaxy." Dr. Sujin checked her readings again. The changes in Jiwoo's brain were stabilizing, but they appeared to be permanent. The innocent young linguist was gone forever. "What else did you learn?" Captain Dong-min asked. He needed to understand the full scope of the intelligence they had gained. "I learned their complete military strategy," Jiwoo replied. "I know the location of every hidden weapon cache, every secret base, every alliance they have made and broken. I also know the location of 3 other species that might help us. But approaching them will require us to prove that we are as ruthless as the Velthrons." She turned back to face the others, and they all saw that something fundamental had changed in her. The warmth and empathy that had made her such a perfect translator were still there, but they were now balanced by cold calculation. "I understand why they chose me for this," Jiwoo said. "They needed someone innocent enough to pass their initial tests, but they also needed someone strong enough to bear the weight of what they were going to reveal. Most people would have broken under the knowledge I now carry. Ambassador Hyo-rim felt a chill run down her spine. What knowledge, Ji-woo, what exactly? Did they show you? They showed me humanity's future, Ji-woo replied. In 50 years, when the Void-bringers reach our space, we will have 3 choices. We can fight and probably lose everything. We can run and spend eternity fleeing through the galaxy, or we can become like them. We can sacrifice our humanity to become something strong enough to survive. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications of what she was saying. There is a 4th option, Ji-woo continued. We can try to find a middle path. We can keep our compassion but learn to be strong when strength is required. We can remain human while becoming something more than we are now. But that will require leaders who understand both sides of that balance. Tae-hyun looked at his sister with growing understanding. Leaders like you. Leaders like me, Ji-woo confirmed. The Velthrons did not break me accidentally. They broke me on purpose. They needed to create someone who could guide humanity through the choices that are coming. Someone who understands the cost of both mercy and cruelty. She walked back to the desk and picked up the translation matrix. Despite everything that had happened, she felt no anger toward the device. It had simply been a tool used to forge her into something new. Tomorrow I will give the Velthrons our answer, Ji-woo said. Humanity will join their alliance, but we will do it on our own terms. We will learn their military secrets. We will prepare for the war that is coming, but we will not lose ourselves in the process. Dr. Sujin realized with a mixture of admiration and sadness that the young woman she had known was truly gone. In Chujab, her place stood someone who might be humanity's greatest hope or its greatest tragedy. Only time would tell which one Ji-woo had chosen to become. The next morning, Ji-woo walked through the crystal spires alone. She had asked the others to let her meet with High Arbiter Vexthal without any witnesses. There were questions that needed answers, and some truths were too dangerous for unprepared minds to hear. She found the ancient Velthron in his private garden surrounded by plants that glowed with bioluminescent light. He was tending to a flower that looked like frozen starlight. When he saw her approach, his expression showed no surprise. You have come seeking the final truth, High Arbiter Vexthal said without looking up from his gardening. Good. I was beginning to wonder if the translation process had damaged your curiosity along with your innocence. The glitch was not an accident, Ji-woo stated, rather than asked. She had spent the night analyzing everything that had happened, and the conclusion was unavoidable. Of course not, the High Arbiter replied. We have been manipulating translation matrices for 300 years. It is how we test potential allies. Those whose representatives can handle the truth become partners. Those who cannot are quietly forgotten. Ji-woo felt a cold anger building in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. How many species have you tested this way? 47. High Arbiter Vexthal answered as he moved to another plant. 31 failed the test. Their representatives either went insane or became so traumatized they could not function. We erased their memories and sent them home with reports that we were not interested in alliance. And the 16 that passed, they became the core of our military alliance. Each contributes according to their strengths. The Keth provide biological weapons. The Moor supply advanced engineering. The Zun offer their fleets. Together we have been preparing for the Voidbringer invasion for 2 centuries. Ji-woo walked closer to the ancient alien. Why did you choose me specifically? What made you think I could handle what you were going to show me? High Arbiter Vexthal finally looked directly at her. Because you possess something extremely rare. True empathy combined with inner strength. Most beings are either too soft to make hard choices or too hard to care about the cost. You can feel the pain of others while still doing what must be done. Is that supposed to be a compliment? Ji-woo asked bitterly. It is a statement of fact, the High Arbiter replied. The galaxy needs leaders who can hold both mercy and ruthlessness in perfect balance. Your species shows promise, but you needed someone to guide you toward that balance. Jiwoo sat down on a crystal bench and stared at her hands. You destroyed who I was to create who you needed me to become. We revealed who you already were beneath the Innocence, High Arbiter Vexthal corrected. The capacity for what you have become was always within you. We simply awakened it earlier than life would have naturally. The old alien moved to sit beside her on the bench. Despite everything, Jiwoo found his presence strangely comforting. Perhaps because he was the only person who truly understood the burden she now carried. Tell me about the other species that passed your test, Jiwoo said. What happened to the people you changed? Some became great military leaders who saved their civilizations. Others became tyrants who destroyed everything they tried to protect. The knowledge we give is a tool. How it gets used depends on the character of the person who receives it. And what do you think will happen to me? High Arbiter Vexthal studied her face carefully before answering. I think you will find a way to use terrible knowledge for good purposes, but the path will cost you everything you once believed about yourself. Jiwoo stood up and walked to the edge of the garden. Below them, the alien city stretched to the horizon, millions of beings going about their daily lives unaware that their entire civilization was built on foundations of necessary evil. There is something else, she said without turning around. Something you have not told me yet. You are very perceptive, High Arbiter Vexthal replied with what might have been approval in his voice. Yes, there is more. The Voidbringers are not our only enemy. There is something else moving in the deep galaxy, something that makes the machine fleets look like children playing with toys. Jiwoo felt her blood turn cold. What? We do not know exactly. Our deepest scouts report massive energy signatures moving between galaxies. Whatever it is seems to be following the same path the Voidbringers took millions of years ago, as if it is hunting them. Why did you not mention this during the ceremony? Because that knowledge is reserved for those who prove they can handle the first revelation. High Arbiter Vexthal explained. You have now proven yourself. But your species is not ready for this information. They must first learn to deal with the Voidbringers before they can even comprehend what else might be coming. Jiwoo turned back to face him. How long do we have? The Voidbringers will reach this sector in 50 years, as I told you. The other threat is perhaps 200 years behind them, maybe less. And you expect humanity to be ready for both. I expect humanity to help us find solutions that pure military force cannot provide. High Arbiter Vexthal said. Your species has something that most others lose as they advance technologically. You still believe in impossible things. You still dream of ways to solve problems without destroying everything in the process. Jiwoo understood what he was really saying. You need us to find a third option, something other than fight or flee or surrender. Exactly. The Veltran Empire has the knowledge and experience to wage war, but we have forgotten how to imagine peace. Your innocence was not just a test of your trustworthiness. It was proof that humanity still remembers how to hope for better solutions. Even though you just destroyed that innocence. Your innocence, yes. But your species retains theirs. You can guide them toward wisdom without destroying their ability to dream of something better than endless war. Jiwoo sat back down on the bench, feeling the full weight of what was being asked of her. She was to become a bridge between two impossible states of being. She must be wise enough to prepare humanity for war while keeping them hopeful enough to seek peace. What if I fail? She asked. Then the galaxy falls to darkness. High Arbiter Vexthal replied with simple honesty. Either the machines will convert everything to their cold logic, or whatever is hunting them will destroy what remains. You and the leaders like you from other species are the only hope for something better. No pressure at all, Jiwoo said with bitter humor. The burden of knowledge is always heavy. High Arbiter Vexthal agreed. But you were chosen because you are strong enough to carry it without being crushed. Now you must return to your people and begin preparing them for what is coming. Jiwoo stood up knowing that this conversation was ending, but that her real work was just beginning. Will I see you again? Perhaps, if any of us survive what is coming. High Arbiter Vex Thal returned to his gardening. Go now. Your species needs their new guardian to come home and begin teaching them how to survive. As Jiwoo walked back toward the human quarters, she realized that she would never again be the person her brother remembered, or the innocent translator who had arrived on this world just days ago. Now she was something new, something necessary, something that might save humanity or doom it. The future would depend on which choice she made. 5 years had passed since the Harmony returned to Earth, carrying news that changed everything. The blue planet that had once seemed so isolated now buzzed with activity as humanity prepared for a war they had never imagined possible. Admiral Jiwoo stood on the observation deck of the new orbital defense station, watching construction robots assemble weapon platforms that could crack moons. Her uniform bore insignia that did not exist when she left Earth as a young translator. Now she commanded the combined fleets of 12 species in preparation for the coming darkness. The latest intelligence reports from the Rim Scouts, Captain, Dongmin said as he handed her a data pad. He had aged considerably in the past 5 years, but his loyalty to Jiwoo remained absolute. He had watched her transform from innocent girl to humanity's greatest military mind. Jiwoo read the report with the same cold efficiency she brought to everything now. The Voidbringer advance fleets are ahead of schedule. They will reach the outer colonies in 43 years instead of 50. Should we accelerate the evacuation plans? No, Jiwoo replied, after considering the options. We stick to the original timeline. Moving too fast will create panic, and panic makes people stupid. We need humanity to remain capable of creative thinking. Through the viewport, Earth looked peaceful and beautiful. Most of the population still went about their daily lives unaware of the specific threats approaching. They knew humanity was building defenses against hostile aliens, but Jiwoo had carefully controlled how much information reached the general public. Dr. Soo-jin approached, carrying her ever-present tablet full of psychological profiles. The latest batch of military academy graduates show promising adaptability scores. Your training programs are producing officers who can think both tactically and ethically. Good, Jiwoo said. We will need leaders who can make hard choices without losing their humanity. The Velthron approach of pure pragmatism is not the answer for our species. Tae-hyun joined them, wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Intelligence Service. His job was to coordinate with alien allies while watching for signs of betrayal. The galaxy was full of species that would sacrifice humanity to save themselves if the situation became desperate enough. Any word from our deep space monitoring stations? Jiwoo asked her brother. Nothing new about the mystery threat from between galaxies, Tae-hyun replied. But the Keth have reported strange energy readings in their outer system. Something is definitely following the Voidbringer path, but staying well behind them. Jiwoo nodded and filed that information away with thousands of other details she tracked constantly. The burden of knowledge she carried had only grown heavier with time. She now knew the military capabilities of 47 different species. She could plan campaigns that spanned multiple star systems. She understood political dynamics that most diplomats never grasped. But the cost of that knowledge was visible in her eyes. The warmth and innocence that had made her such a perfect translator were gone forever. In their place was a cold intelligence that could calculate the acceptable loss of entire worlds if it meant saving humanity as a whole. The new recruits are asking to meet you, Dr. Soo-jin said. They want to understand how someone so young became Earth's supreme military commander. Tell them the truth, Jiwoo replied. I was chosen because I could handle knowledge that would break most people, and because someone needed to carry the burden of making impossible decisions so that others could remain human. Ambassador Hyo-rim arrived carrying reports from the latest diplomatic meetings. The Velthran High Council is requesting another strategy session. They want to discuss contingency plans if the primary defense lines fail. Schedule it for tomorrow, Jiwoo said. But make it clear that humanity will not accept any plans that involve abandoning our colonies. We fight for every world, or we do not fight at all. That stance could get us labeled as unrealistic by our allies, Ambassador Yorim warned. Let them think what they want, Jiwoo replied. Our strength comes from the fact that we still believe some things are worth dying for. The moment we start thinking like the Velthrans, we become just another pragmatic species willing to sacrifice others for our own survival. A young lieutenant approached and saluted. Admiral, the new prototype weapons have completed their testing phase. The plasma cannons show a 40% improvement in efficiency over Velthron designs. Excellent, Jiwoo said. Begin full production immediately, and make sure we share the improvements with our allies. We need them to trust that humanity brings more to this alliance than just hope and determination. As the others went about their duties, Jiwoo remained alone on the observation deck. In quiet moments like this, the weight of everything she had lost would sometimes threaten to overwhelm her. She remembered the young woman who had been excited to meet aliens for the first time. That person felt like a stranger now. But then she would think about the children in the schools below, the families who still believed in peaceful solutions to conflicts, the scientists who spent their time discovering beautiful things about the universe instead of ways to destroy it. They could remain innocent because she had chosen to bear the darkness for them. A communication alert interrupted her thoughts. The message was from High Arbiter Vexthal himself. Admiral Jiwoo, the Veltron leader said through the holographic display. Our scouts have confirmed that the Voidbringers have begun converting the Kepler colonies. The war you have been preparing for has officially begun. Jiwoo felt no surprise at the news. She had been expecting this moment for 5 years. How long until they reach the main colonies? 18 months if they maintain current pace. But they may accelerate once they realize how well defended this sector has become. Then we implement Operation Guardian Shield, Jiwoo said calmly. Alert all fleet commanders. Activate the hidden weapon caches. Begin evacuating non-essential personnel from the outer rim. Are you ready for this, Jiwoo? High Arbiter Vexthal asked. There was something almost like concern in his ancient voice. Jiwoo looked out at Earth one more time before answering. I have been ready since the moment you destroyed my innocence and rebuilt me into what humanity needed. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for what humans can become when we fight for something we truly believe in. The transmission ended, and Jiwoo activated the general alert system. Across human space, sirens began to sound as humanity's greatest test began. But as she watched the defense platforms come online and saw the first ships of the human fleet launching from Earth's orbital shipyards, Jiwoo felt something she had not experienced in 5 years: hope. Not the naive hope of her youth, but something harder and more valuable. The hope that came from being prepared. The hope that came from knowing that humanity would face the darkness while still remembering what light looked like. The void. Bringers had converted 40 star systems by eliminating everything that made their inhabitants unique. But they had never faced a species that could become stronger while remaining human. They were about to learn what that difference meant. Admiral Jiwoo turned away from the viewport and walked toward the command center. The war for the galaxy was beginning, and humanity's greatest weapon was not their new technology or their alien allies. It was a young woman who had sacrificed her innocence so that others could keep theirs. A leader who carried darkness so that her people could still dream of light. The universe was about to discover why humans were different from every other species, and why that difference might be enough to save them all.